Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're starting in on the biggest size of pipe that I've ever built pipe fence out of. It's an 8-inch entryway with 2 horizontals. The fence coming into the entryway is 6-inch post, and we're putting 5 4.5-inch horizontal rails in this fence. For those of you who may not know, my name's Austin Ross. I've been a welder for 14 years. Here on this channel I share tips and tricks for rig welders. If those are videos that you're interested in, make sure and subscribe and ring that bell to get notified when I post a new video every Friday. On that topic of pipe fence, if you're not on my email list, you may not know about the pipe fence course that we pre-sold a couple months ago. It's an online course detailed about how to build pipe fence. The first students are actually starting in on it right now, but we'll talk more about that here in a little bit. All right, so this 8-inch entryway is going to look a little something like this. It's going to have 2 horizontals with 45s on each end, about 16 inches of gap in between. It's going to be 14 foot high to the bottom of the bottom horizontal and 13.5 wide. This was the very first thing we did on location. We haven't popped any holes, haven't laid out any fence. I literally just wanted to get the entryway built. So me and my dad, that's my dad here, we came out here and built the entryway. I recommend stuff like this depending on your business model and how much help you have and whatnot, but this was something I could do ahead of time before I worried about renting equipment, before I worried about getting concrete, water, anything out to location. I could literally come out here and have this done. You can see here I'm using my gin pole to move this pipe around. You can actually find prints of the gin pole on my website at arosswelding.com/shop under digital prints. Super handy apparatus. We got it set in stands, then I started laying out the 45s on the ends of the pipe. So full disclosure, before I ever started laying anything out, I needed to know the length of the top horizontal and the bottom horizontal because I wanted the 45s to line up like so. So I laid it out on the back of my truck on my toolbox lid, and full disclosure, I was actually shooting for 14-foot opening, but the landowner had mentioned 12 foot. So this mistake that I'm embarrassingly telling you about wasn't a big deal, and he was all right with it. I just want to get that out of the way right now. This is one of the reasons why I recommend having somebody on your team to draw stuff, or taking the time to, way more time than I took here at the beginning of this day, to make sure your measurements are right so you don't have an error like I did. So long story short, I laid it out on the back of my bed, and I was obviously off probably half of a 45 if I was guessing. That's where I was wrong, because I had to bring it in 3 inches on each side so we would have enough pipe, because once I cut this first one, it was game over without having to add anything. I offered to the client, I said, look, you know, I messed up. I said, are you all right with 13.5? And he said, oh yeah. He said, it's fine. He said, don't worry about it. And that's what I was hoping, but I definitely would have taken the time to redo it, cut it, well, whatever I had to do to make it 14. I'm not opposed to fixing my own mistake. But anyway, long story short, I laid it out ahead of time to try to figure all this out. And then we quartered the pipe, which just means split it up into sections so I could lay out for a 45. We will put a couple of videos in the description of this video to where you can go check out what I am doing in detail whenever it comes to laying out for these 45s. I've done another video series on exactly what I'm doing here on laying everything out. I also recommend making a template or buying one. I'm pretty sure you can buy a template for this stuff. The reason I haven't bought anything is because up until this year, I haven't done near enough of these to make it worth my while of making one or buying one. But it's looking like, you know, since I'm going to keep doing these, I better just go ahead and get a template or something, because it would save me a bunch of time versus laying them out. But just so we're clear, I do think it's helpful to know how to lay stuff out and read the blue book and practice this type of thing. It's kind of just an old school way to kind of be prepared and work with very little. So I don't regret laying anything out. I don't think it's a waste of time. I think it's good practice and everything. But for those of you looking to do this as a business, or you know, you get into doing a bunch of the same thing, I do recommend having a template, because you're going to start to feel crazy laying it out over and over. You're like, man, I could just wrap a template around here and be done. and go about my way, and I totally agree. So anyway, we got the top horizontal laid out and cut. The next thing I did was lay out my 2 vertical pieces that were going in between the 2 horizontal pieces. I was glad to have my dad here this day because he was able to hold the pipe wrap while I marked it. I've done this by myself several times, but it is a pain and can be frustrating. It's so nice just to have an extra set of hands. All right, so if you're interested in the pipe fence course that we are creating, it will be available again soon. We're not sure when yet, but at some point it will be available again. The first students are going through it right now. We're gonna get feedback from them. We're gonna obviously continue to complete the course and get it refined and ready for those of you that are interested in it. In the meantime, if you want to read a little bit about it or check out an example course that we have made, you can find this information under the trade school website, www.aroswelding.school. There you will be able to read about the pipe fence course. If you're not sure whether the online course situation or the tech is for you, I highly recommend checking out the example course. You will have to put in your email to have access to this example course. It's totally free, it doesn't cost you anything. But we wanted to give you a chance to check out what you're getting and if you're going to be able to understand it. The example course Kayla has made actually walks you through everything. If you do end up checking out the example course, I highly recommend going to one of the last videos she made. It's a full walkthrough video of the course, like how to navigate it, she explains everything. I highly recommend that. That way you can get an idea whether this online education is for you or not. We're doing what we can to detail everything as much as possible to help you as much as possible. If and or when you leave your email to get the example course, make sure and check that box to get emails in the future, newsletters, whatever it says there. That way you get notified whenever we do put the course back up for sale. All right, so I've mentioned in the past about how if you're doing like 4 or 5 rail fence, like you're doing the saddle method versus the circle burner method, and you're saddling each one of your horizontals to fit the same size of pipe. Like if you got 2 7/8 uprights and you're doing 2 7/8 horizontals, you can take your template, throw it on there, mark your saddle, and you can use both of those cuts. Like pretend this is your saddle. You cut it, you got this piece, you can go put it in, and you can just take this saddle and go ahead and use it for your next one. You don't have to do nothing because it'll fit pretty close. Well, the bigger your pipe size gets, the less likely you're going to be able to do that. And I used this example here to show you what I mean by that. So here is a picture of what's left of our good saddle. It's like the opposite. And here is a picture of the legitimate saddle for this 8-inch. See how it fits so much better and the other one does not? That's just because it's the opposite. These two were joined, if that makes sense. So if this ever happens, if you ever cut a saddle and it's wide in the throat like this, chances are it's just backwards. It's the opposite side of your saddle. The other side would fit your pipe. So once I got those cut, I went ahead and capped the ends of both horizontals. I just put a piece of plate on the end, and then I traced it, and then I cut 4 of those out. To get them fitting good, I did have to grind my pipe, a little bit more flat, but obviously isn't a big deal. I got all of the ends capped. I used 532 8010, but you could definitely use 1/8 6010, 532 6010, 6011, 6013, any types of these rods will work just fine for this type of welding. This here is a grasshopper, because once I capped the ends of the pipe, I didn't have nowhere to put a ground. So this is what we call a grasshopper. We use them on pipeline work to keep our arc inside the bevel so we don't arc outside the weld zone. And we actually carry these collapsible grasshoppers in the A-Ross Welding store under the shop tab and then under the tools tab. Once I got them capped, I did go ahead and sand them down smooth. I try to do as much work as I can on the ground, if at all possible. It's not the end of the world if you have to do something up on a ladder or up in a tractor bucket or man lift or something, but I do try to think ahead a little bit to make sure I do all my sanding and stuff down on the ground. Now it was time to level everything back up. The one thing I like about laying out my saddles is you've got lines now. Like whenever you have to lay everything out, you use a piece of angle to make straight lines for all your quarters, and this allows you to have a reference point. So in this case, I know exactly where the center of my 45 is on this horizontal. So I just put my center finder, this here is a center finder, put my center finder on that line and I roll it to where it's level. And then I put the center of my short saddled piece there on that line. I still check everything with a square and a level, but this is like a peace of mind and takes out a lot of guesswork whenever you have lines to line up all your quarters. So that is one thing I like about laying everything out from the Blue Book. The Blue Book is also available on the A-Ross Welding website. So once I got them tacked on, I rolled it down and moved my shorter horizontal up into place and leveled everything, tacked it off, and then went to welding it out. I was so thankful to have this gin pole. Super handy. I just can't get over it. I was able to lift it up, get where I needed to, get a little more comfortable. Once I got that top piece welded out, I was ready to start laying out my main verticals that were gonna go into the ground. And I just done it the same way as I did the other ones. I quartered it up. Took my measurements from my blue book, put my pipe wrap on there. Got her all square and level with the other piece that I'd built. Tacked it in place. And then done the same thing for the other side. Once I got both legs tacked on there, I went to welding it out. Again, I used 532 8010. I put a first pass in there, just a sealer pass is what I call it. And then I put a cap pass over everything with the same rod. And there you have it. Entryway is ready to go on the ground. This took me 2 days, just to give you all an idea of how long something like this takes, roughly, depending on your experience and whether you have a helper or a tractor or gin pole. A lot of different factors, but 2 days is what it took me. My advice for this week is something I heard a few years ago, something along the lines of, I don't remember the exact numbers, it doesn't matter, it's a bunch. I heard a while back that it takes over 2,000 times of doing something to master it, or to, I don't even remember what the term was, but it was like something, 2,000 times of doing something before you get like sure enough good at it. Long story short, you can't have too much practice. There's no such thing. I don't even believe in mastering anything. I just don't. I believe in getting more confident in what you do and getting better at what you do, like no doubt. But I personally believe that the sky is the limit. Like, just whenever you've got your business or your torch using skills to a fine old machine, like you're just, you know, you're going good, you're in a rhythm, you've cut a saddle 300 times and it's going good. I believe there's always room for improvement, always another way to do it better, always another way to make it better, or always a way to improve it, you know, like there's just always room for improvement. Long story short, when it comes to torch cutting or welding, you cannot have too much practice. If you don't hear me say anything ever again in any one of my videos ever again, hear this. The most important piece of advice that I would give anybody that did not start welding whenever they were 5 years old or whatever, if you're 18, 20, 25, 30, 40, just now starting to weld, be doing something pretty much every single day. Be using a cutting torch, be using a plasma, be using a grinder, be using a welder. Doing it every single day is the only way you're going to improve. I obviously believe that you have to be intentional about making the next weld better, making the next cut better. So I think that's a huge part of it, is your mindset. But even at minimum, even if you're not thinking about it, if you're just doing it, your muscles, your eyes, your everything that goes with how our human miracle of bodies work is getting practice in that. It's a skill, it's a trade. We work with our hands. That's how it works, and there's no such thing as too much practice. So the old cliche saying, practice makes perfect. I didn't want to start out with saying practice makes perfect because it's too cliche, but it makes a lot of sense. Think about 2,000 times of doing something. That's nuts. That's a lot of times. So 4,000, 10,000. Can't have too much practice. No such thing. Thank you all for all your support. Thank you for sticking till the end of the video. If you're still here, I know that you are here for the long haul. You support everything we do, and we greatly, greatly appreciate it. And if you're interested in the pipe fence course, we do recommend going to check it out, arosswelding.school, and you can read all about the pipe fence course. You can check out the example course. Kayla and I have put a lot of time into this, still are. Kayla specifically has been putting a lot of time into organizing it and breaking it down into bite-sized pieces. But that's what we're excited about. You know, we like making it as digestible and as easy and as enjoyable and valuable as possible for you to get this information, you know, and for it to actually be tangible to grab hold of and do something yourself with this skill. So we're super excited about it. We couldn't do it without you guys. We appreciate your support, and don't forget to learn something every day. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next Friday.